James Brago is back and joins Matt Raczynski and Chris Kroger. The guys touch on the All-Star break, the sprint to the end of the season, and JB's lineup change. This is the Hornets.com Coaches Show.
I'm Matt Raczynski, being joined by Chris Kroger for the Hornets.com Coaches Show. Chris, haven't caught up since after All-Star Weekend. Just kind of take me through, what did you think overall about how things went over All-Star Weekend?
Well, I think our city looked fantastic. I think we got to see our city showcased on a global stage. We knew that going in. I think it's funny you say, oh, this is what it's going to be like and this is what's going to happen. You know how many people are coming into town, all the events, all those sort of things, and then you experience and you realize, oh yeah, this is really happening. And so there's a surreal nature thing, I think, to that all weekend long. I got to be in the stands as a fan on All-Star Saturday night, which was a lot of fun, and just kind of take in three-point contest and the dunk contest and cheer on Kemba and Miles, not have to call their games for a little bit. So that was a lot of fun. And, you know, I think the feedback has been great. You were around all weekend long working. I think, you know, a lot of folks with the NBA said, man, we might have to get Charlotte into the rotation. And why not, right? Our city's walkable, so many restaurants and things to do. The people are so welcoming, and you know, the weather. We had a bad weather weekend, and it was still 50 degrees outside, so not too bad for February.
Yeah, and I think what you said, the city itself was our third All-Star, aside from Miles, aside from Kemba, and the fact that it was walkable seemed really important to people. Everybody was worried about traffic. Everybody was worried about how things were going to go with so many people coming into the city. Great job by the CMPD keeping everything under control. Getting in and out was relatively easy. It was great to see. But people really liked exploring this little city that we've got.
Yeah, why not? And it's not little, you know, like you say little. I think we all refer to Charlotte as that. It's, you know, Reno was always the biggest little city in the world, right? We kind of feel like that, I think, here in the South. You know, we're representative of the New South, and our city's growing all the time. There's cranes up every time you turn your head around in uptown Charlotte. And Kemba kind of said that. You know, guys are asking him, hey, what's there to do in town? Where do you like to go? Where do you like to eat? So he was in charge of kind of dishing out advice to all of his fellow all-stars out there. But I think people came to Charlotte and realized, man, the city's truly got a lot. There's a lot to do, and so you know, maybe down the road that pays dividends for Charlotte when it comes to the Hornets, and who knows, maybe free agency even in the next few years.
Now, you mentioned we'd love to have one back. It was fun having it. Covering it was a little bit different. It was a little busy. Yeah. We were kind of going crazy, but make sure fans, if you haven't had a chance, go back on Hornets.com. Check out all of our coverage from All-Star Weekend. Absolutely phenomenal weekend. Again, Miles, Kemba, you said you were there on Saturday night. How did you think they represented us in their respective contests? I thought
Kemba, you know, was Kemba. It was so cool, and this was pretty surreal to see him open up All-Star Weekend. He was on stage with Ali LaForce of TNT to open up the broadcast, really the first big broadcast of the weekend. And look, he represented not only our organization but the city of Charlotte, and so that was really cool to see him have a welcome message for the entire world to see. And then obviously competed in the three-point contest. And for Miles, I thought Miles maybe might have just bit off a little bit more than he could chew with that first dunk. Yeah. Great idea, but there is strategy involved in the dunk contest. And I think even if you asked him if he could do it all over again, maybe just land the first dunk. Yeah. You know, don't have to be crazy over the top. Just land it and give yourself a chance to throw down something crazy with his second dunk, which he did, thanks to the help from Kemba. Put on the Grandma Ma jersey. The gold tooth as well is a nice little accoutrement on top of all that. So I think if Miles could do it all over again, he'd say, you know what, I got to be a little bit more methodical, give myself a chance, which is what Hamidou Diallo did. And then he broke out the crazy bag of tricks. And we both know Miles had some stuff that he didn't even get to showcase yet. So maybe next year we'll see it from Miles.
Maybe we'll see it eventually at some point in time, fans. Then All-Star game on Sunday, Kemba goes out. Shot wasn't falling, but then Kemba does what Kemba does, says, I'm going to play this game the right way. I'm going to defer. I'm going to make sure I get other people involved, and led all All-Stars in assists.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember Michael Jordan's press conference the week of All-Star Weekend, and you know, Michael was asked about, you know, what it was like for him to play in All-Star games, and he said, you know, I just always feel like this game, we have a burden as players to play the game the right way, right? And I thought, to your point, Kemba did that. Maybe he was a little tired from being the host all weekend long. He had a lot of events all weekend long, and I think he realized, yeah, I could get shots up, and I could try to get some buckets, but you know what? I'm playing in the backcourt with Stephen Curry right now. Why don't I just dish the basketball? Let's have some fun. The floor is open. Giannis is down there too, running the pick and roll with Giannis. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? So I think Kemba really showed himself nicely. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, I thought he handled himself well.
Overall, just a tremendous weekend. But we got to get back to Hornets basketball.
Yeah.
All-Star ends back at it right away. Had an opening weekend set Friday, Saturday. Big win on Friday over Washington. Tough loss on Saturday. We all saw how that one ended. Just kind of break down what you saw over the course of the weekend.
Well, not without controversy, as you said on Saturday. That loss to the Nets, 117-115. I thought the Hornets really handled themselves well against Washington. You know, Washington has been one of the most high-powered offenses in the NBA since they made this trade for Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker, and the Hornets saw that up close and personal. They battled back from double digits to beat Washington on Friday. And then they have the back-to-back at home, taking on Brooklyn, the rested team, and got down 19 points in that game. They had a 27-point swing, down 19 right out of the half. They get up 8 with about 3:12 to go. And look, in a certain regard, you got to tip your cap to a guy like D'Angelo Russell, who was in the All-Star here in Charlotte a couple weeks ago. I think he's probably the closest thing you could see to Kemba Walker right now in the NBA in terms of he's a little taller, a little bigger, but he's developed a three-point shot. He's done it in transition. He's got great handles. He can work his way to the basket, and he's got a confidence about him that he's willing to take any shot on the court. And he plays with a chip on his shoulder, much like Kemba. And you saw him channel some of those heroics late. You got to tip his cap. He scored their final 12. And for the Hornets, you know, JB was even saying after that game, you know, you rode the hot hand with Tony Parker and Kemba. They played all 12 minutes in the fourth on Saturday. Maybe they just stuck with him a little too long. He said, maybe I did that. But at a certain point, you got to live with those decisions.
Right.
You know, you got to dance with the one that brought you there. And that was the group that got the Hornets back in front. So I don't think he has any bad feelings or regrets about it. Sometimes you just play the game. It's the way it plays out. And, of course, Kemba, you know, didn't get fouled, according to the NBA, on that final shot attempt. And so you got to live with that result. And you did wonder, right, as you went into the Warriors game, how would the Hornets handle it? And Coach told me going into the game, look, there is a real hangover effect. It's going to happen. We have to push through it. And boy, did the Hornets do it right out of the gate on Monday night.
Yeah, and it was great to see, especially because of the weekend. You start early in the first quarter, down 11 to the Wizards, down 14 to the Nets. To come out and play with the Warriors in that first quarter really kind of set the tone.
And I'll say this, too, to your point. You go over the last four quarters, first quarters, as I can say. That's a tongue tie right there. You go back to Indiana, Orlando, Washington, and Brooklyn. The Hornets have been outscored by 53 points in their last four first quarters going into the Warriors game. And it's double digits in all of those. And the Hornets have really struggled to shoot. It's, I think, hurt them on the defensive end. And then that starts to compound itself, right? The shot's not going in. You have a propensity maybe to sag a little bit on defense. And next thing you know, you find yourselves down, like you said, 12, 15, 18 points. And it's tough to come back from that. They were 9 lead changes, 3 ties in the first quarter with Golden State. Only trailed by 4 going to the second. So they gave themselves a chance. And it's just an energy thing, attention to detail. They came out, executed the game plan, and it gave themselves a chance the rest of the game against Golden State.
Yeah, I don't think anybody with the Hornets can be disappointed with the showing that we put up against the back-to-back defending champions. The thing that really just stuck out to me was we did get down, had to keep battling back, and we kept doing that push-pull, push-pull. But that Golden State Warriors team is so poised, and it doesn't seem like anything affects them when a crowd's getting into it and a team's coming back.
Well, look, should we be surprised they've got literally 5 All-Stars in their starting lineup? They are an All-Star team with their starting 5, but I thought what you saw with the Hornets when they were able to take advantages, the second unit for the Warriors, 29th in the NBA in bench scoring. The Hornets, one of the best bench scoring teams in the NBA. Second unit had the edge. I think the Hornets had the decisive edge. Even down low, I know Boogie had his highest scoring game of the year, but when you look at what their bigs do, how they play a lot of smaller lineups. Cody Zeller had a career night against the Warriors, quite literally. And I thought the Hornets had some decisive advantages going into the game matchup-wise. They executed those. Ultimately, and not ironically, the difference in the game, three-point shooting. The Warriors had 14 threes made in the game. The Hornets, I think, connected on just 7. And so the Hornets have not been able to find their three-point touch consistently over the last couple of weeks, and they've got to find a way to regain that because they've been one of the better three-point shooting teams all year.
Well, but props to the Hornets when the shots aren't falling from the outside. They went with that other option and get the ball inside to Cody Zeller again and again and again.
He's still storming down the lane right now, scoring actually out on the court here at Spectrum Center.
I mean, Cody, over the course of the last 6 in a row of double-digit scoring, his last 9 he's averaging 17 points, 9.7 rebounds. Cody's playing in a zone that we haven't really seen Cody play.
Well, yeah, quite literally, because to your point, 6 straight double-digit scoring games. That ties the longest streak of his career. He'd have to go all the way back, I believe, since the end of the 14-15 season, the last time he did that. And then on top of that, I woke up this morning, I thought, I want to know how many people have ever logged a stat line like Cody had last night. We had a little bit of maybe a discrepancy in the official scoring in terms of one missed field goal. He was blocked technically, even though the ball was around his hip.
Right.
But if you're,
which in the NBA is a block.
Yeah.
We'll give him that.
If you're going up, they you know, when the ball's deflected away, they call that a block. So he went 13 of 14 from the field, so 92% shooting. He had 28 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. And I looked it up, and according to Basketball Reference, it's literally never been done before. Nobody in NBA history in a single game has ever shot more than 90% from the field on that many field goal attempts, scoring that many points, and literally notching multiple assists, rebounds, blocks, and steals in the same game. So we literally saw NBA history for Cody Zeller on Monday.
So Cody is playing at a different level. We've also seen Nick Batum come out and really become more aggressive on the offensive end as of late.
11 threes in his last 3 games. He only had 2, but he only had 2 on Monday night. He had 9 over the previous 2 coming in. So I think you're just seeing Nick Batum become more and more comfortable. And I know we'll talk about this, but the change in the starting lineup, right, I think has paid dividends for a guy like Nick, because now back in that shooting guard spot, okay, you've got to be aggressive out there. We're depending on you to be aggressive. And Coach also has been intentional about running more action for him early in the game, whether that's him curling off of screens or coming downhill on that hammer action. And look, Nick, I think is underrated sometimes for his length and athleticism. And when you look at him and he gets downhill and he's able to extend that right hand, he either can go up and under and lay it in, or you'll see him throw down with some dunks. So I think when you're seeing Nick be aggressive, get downhill, and be a focal point of the Hornets offense, his shooting numbers have been great all year. It's now about getting him higher, and now you're seeing him get more of those shots up, and it's been big for him and for the Hornets.
And you mentioned the change in the starting lineup out of the break. Miles Bridges into the starting lineup. Jeremy Lamb goes into the bench. How is that beneficial for this team, and how can Jeremy really embrace that to become the impact player that we need to have off the bench?
Well, before the Wizards game, the Hornets, and that was Miles' first start, Jeremy's first game going to the bench, the Hornets had been outscored by their opponent's bench for a pretty consistent stretch. The Hornets actually hadn't outscored their opponent's bench all the way back since the beginning of February against Memphis.
Oh, wow.
And that seems kind of hard to believe because we've come so used to the Hornets bench being really good. They'd hit a backslide. Now, some of that coincides with Tony Parker being out for injury. So those two things are interlinked. We know the Hornets are 1-10 without Tony Parker on the year. But now I think moving Jeremy, who's a consistent scorer, you know, when Jeremy first talked about the move, he said, look, this is where I made it in the NBA, was coming off the bench. And he did it here in Charlotte under Steve Clifford at that time. So I think Jeremy's comfortable in this role, and much maybe like Brooklyn and Lou Williams in LA with the Clippers. But Spencer Dinwiddie in Brooklyn, Lou Williams in LA, you bring a dynamic scorer off the bench, a guy who's capable of starting on a lot of teams, it's just a mismatch. Second units aren't used to that. They're not capable of handling that. So you get Tony and Jeremy out there, then you start to mix in Malik and MKG, who can cut off of that as well. And I think for Miles, the floor is just more open. You run with the starters, and that's why I think you're seeing him even more aggressive, crashing the glass, and then also being able to spot up for 3 and really get downhill and, you know, throw down some more dunks like we like.
And I think that consistency is going to be huge coming off the bench, because when you're playing with so many young players coming off the bench, you can't rely on them to do things night after night the way Jeremy might be able to.
No doubt. And the other thing, too, and Coach has been very vocal about this, you're not losing Jeremy with that starting group. And, in fact, he played 30-plus minutes, I believe, against the Warriors. There's still large chunks of time, especially in the fourth quarter, where basically the old starting 5 is still out there playing together. Yep. So now you've got an ability to mix and match, and Jeremy provides that versatility.
All right, well, this has been our takes. We've got to get Coach's take. We'll have Coach here on next, right after this break.
Hey, Hugo, before we do this job swap, can you show me how this half-court shot thing goes? I'm not the most experienced with basketball. Yeah? Okay, great, okay. All right, so okay, bend my knees. Oh, arms up. Oh, I'm glad I didn't ask you to show me how to dunk. How do I get down?
Either we win it or there's overtime. Lamb's gonna have to fire.
Kemba bounces into a three. Enough legs to get it through!
Buzz City, it started 30 years ago. You're the best fans in, the best fans now. Let's have a great year.
Welcome back to the Hornets.com Coaches Show. We're being joined now by head coach James Borrego. Coach, we haven't had a chance to catch up in a little bit.
It's been a while.
Yes, we're coming out of the All-Star break. First, let's just talk All-Star for a sec. How do you think our guys did in terms of representing the city?
They were great. They were fantastic. Just watching them host and be a part of it, enjoy it. I think our fans rallied around them. Miles looked great out there. Just wanted that first dunk to go. But he was great, and you know, I think they represented who we are, who we want to be, who we are as an organization, as a city. They made us all proud. So I was excited for Miles, for Kemba. It looked like Kemba had a great time. He did have a great time. He was a little worn out by the weekend. You know, they had him running around, but I think they were both great, fantastic.
Yeah, we were talking about it too. It's funny, you don't probably think about this as a fringe benefit of hosting All-Star, but it's amazing all the feedback you get from players and coaches and media members. Wow, Charlotte's got a lot, right? It's a nice city, plenty to do, but it's also walkable. So pay some dividends. We got some good FaceTime for our organization and city over the weekend.
Put it out there, good recruiting material, you know, and you know, I didn't know much about Charlotte until I got here and spent some time here. As a visiting team, you're at the Ritz and you get to the arena within a minute, so you don't get to enjoy the city. But I think the city represented themselves very well. I was having a host like Kemba and Miles participate in that, Michael and the entire organization. So I think it was a plus for all of us.
How much do you think it means to a guy like Kemba Walker when players like LeBron, players like Steph come out and say that they really enjoy watching how much he means to this city and how well he does represent it the way that these players see him doing?
Well, it's got to mean a ton to Kemba and validate what he's doing, really. You know, it validates what he believes in the city, in this organization, in his teammates. So when you hear from your peers, that takes it to another. It's one thing for media or fans and people all over the NBA world or landscape to say it, but when your peers, when you know, a LeBron says it, a Steph says it, that goes a long way. So I think people are valuing him more and more now in the NBA, and I think this was sort of a major stamp on that.
We talk about pre-All-Star and then post-All-Star. All-Star break used to really come near the halfway mark.
Right.
Now it's a sprint to the finish line. We had 25 games out of the All-Star break. We always talk about the intensity ratcheting up, but what's tangibly different as a coach, other than obviously the urgency of it? The games, is the pace slower? Obviously the possessions become more meaningful, but just from a pure X's and O's standpoint, how much different are these games after the All-Star break?
Well, I think teams are more familiar with each other. Last night was unique in that we hadn't seen Golden State. Neither of us had seen each other, so that was a little bit different, filling out process. But as we get into these Eastern Conference teams that we'll see throughout these next 22 games, there's a lot of familiarity. So the game does slow down. It feels almost more, I don't want to call it a playoff game, but you've seen each other 3-4 times, which makes for a more exciting game, a slower game. You think about the Brooklyn game. We've had 3 very competitive games. We'll see Washington again here very soon. We see Brooklyn again in a couple days. So the familiarity does slow down the game a little bit. We're not tricking each other. You know what you have, and now you just got to go play. So I think the filling out process is over. Now it's time to get that win. So that's a little different. The interesting thing, though, is we have some Western Conference teams that we still haven't seen. You know, and I think we got Houston coming in, and we still have to go to Houston, go back to Golden State one more time. So, yeah, and the intensity. To your point, the intensity is a little different. Teams that are fighting, you can feel those guys. Teams that aren't, they may slide a little bit here as we go.
Coming out of the break, obviously a change was made in the starting lineup. Can you just talk to us about what goes into that as a coach, just for our fans out there? So it's not just snap second, I'm going to throw this at the wall and see how it goes. A lot of goes into making that decision.
Yeah, you know, a lot of thought goes into that. As a coach, you're always trying to find ways to improve your team and help your group. And there have been stretches throughout the season where I've looked at lineup changes. Is this what's best for us? And I've tried not to be. I've tried to stay disciplined and roll with our group, and I think that's paid dividends for us. I think our group has responded to that, the consistency of that starting lineup over the season. But I think as we headed, you know, we got through the end of that first half, you know, I felt like our group just needed a little spark, something different. And I think, you know, talking it through it with my coaches, our staff, looking at the analytics, the numbers, looking at where we could improve offensively, defensively, looking at lineup combinations, looking at rotations throughout a game. And so a lot of it, you know, over the break was just digging through that material with my staff. And, you know, ultimately we came to that conclusion. Not an easy decision, though, by any means. This is a tough decision to make, especially at this point in the season. And we go with it, and we believe in it. And, you know, hopefully it works out for us. But a lot of time, thought, effort goes into that. I don't take that lightly.
And feel, I'd imagine too, right? There's some of this is, you talk about the analytics and the insights and all the numbers you can draw in, but at a certain point you got to trust your gut.
Yeah.
And I think it was interesting, I was looking as soon as the lineup change was announced, how many minutes has this group played together? It was very short stretches. I think it was 8 minutes in total in the year. And so sometimes you make a change thinking, hey, look, I've seen something with this group on the court together. This one was based off some other numbers, and then, you know what? I've got a gut feeling that this is the right thing to do at the right time for our team, and that's something you can't quantify sometimes.
That's right. I mean, as a coach, sometimes you go with that gut feel. Sometimes you let, you know, sometimes the numbers dictate a little bit. But a decision like this is a little bit of feel, numbers, analytics, video, and, you know, our staff dug through it. You know, everybody had an opinion, a thought. Some agree, some disagree, you know, and that's the beauty of coaching. You know, we all dig through it, and I come out of a program where that's valued. You know, everybody's got a vote, and we dug into it pretty hard.
Just in case our fans out there are wondering, or if you've been living under a rock, the change was Miles Bridges was put into the starting lineup. Jeremy Lamb goes to the bench as the #1 guy off the bench. How important is it when you're looking at a young group other than Tony coming off the bench to have a scorer who's going to be consistent? And that's what Jeremy can bring, right? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, he's a consistent scorer, can create his own shot. We can run the offense through him. And Tony can as well in stretches, but consistently, I think adding Lamb to that lineup just makes us a little more balanced throughout the first quarter, you know, and throughout the game. So I think so far we like that. You know, we like the mixture. Bridges brings us a little more size, athleticism to that first group. The belief and the vision is that we'll have more of a defensive presence early in that game. But really the goal was to really balance the two lineups, to give us more consistency off our bench, more scoring. And I think we've seen that. I mean, it hasn't, we're only 3 games in here, but I think so far it's producing what we thought it could.
It's funny, one of the guys you really get back, it's almost like getting a trade, is Cody Zeller off his injury for a month.
Yeah.
And he was saying during the whole time off, you know, I'm in better shape now. You know, the injury didn't allow me to be in great cardio shape. He wasn't lying. We've seen Cody play his best basketball, and you and I were talking before the game on Monday night against the Warriors. I said, Coach, Saturday against Brooklyn, was that maybe the best game you've seen from Cody Zeller? He said it might be.
Yeah. And
then he goes for a career-high 28 against the Warriors.
He trumped us. He said, I'll show you. I'll show you, Coach.
What are you seeing from him right now? Because he's so active, but it's even when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, it just seems like he's everywhere making plays for your team.
Yeah, he looks fresh. He's recharged, and, you know, it was hard not having him, but I think we thought maybe that time off he'd come in fresh. You know, he's healthy right now. His legs look good. He's in very good shape. But he's just creating for us. Just his energy is infectious. both ends of the floor, running the floor, defensively all over the floor. He's trying to protect the rim for us, setting great screens. His motor is just constant right now. So, and we need that fresh body down the stretch. You know, I think a lot of teams right now are slowing down. I think Cody's starting to pick it up, which is what we need.
Another guy who's picking up with the change in the lineup, seems like Nick is becoming more aggressive offensively. Even before the change, we know you were trying to get more plays, get Nick more involved on the offensive side, knowing what he's contributed defensively all year. But have you seen that from him these last 3 games, really kind of taking more an offensive role?
Yeah, I think, you know, with Lamb in the lineup, it limits his touches a little bit. And he knows that, you know, for us to score and be efficient with that first unit, he's got to be aggressive. And so we were very clear about that when we made the change. Nick, you're going to handle more. We need you to be aggressive. Look for your shot more when that presents itself. And I think he's done that. He's coming out shooting the ball, trying to make plays at the rim, handling more in transition. Kemba's getting him more involved early, and Cody as well. I think all 3 are really trying to figure this out together. Bridges has done a nice job finding his role. He's working through that, as we all are with this new rotation. So, but Nick's been good. He's been a major part of our defense, you know, and I think having Miles there next to him defensively is only going to help him.
And Marvin's another guy too. I know we feel like we talk about him every few weeks. We say, can you believe what Marvin Williams is doing? But sometimes you just watch him. I mean, if fans don't pay it, and it's easy for him maybe to get lost in the fray, but if you just focused on him and how he runs the court on both ends, the way he plays, what he does from a versatility standpoint on defense, Marvin Williams, to me, represents, and we saw it against Washington and Brooklyn in the comebacks in both of those games. He's just the entire fabric of what you want your team to be.
No question. I mean, he's at the core of who we are. You know, plays so hard. He's a professional, both ends of the floor. Doesn't take a possession off. Values each possession. Competes every single night. And it may not look like it every night in the box score, but he gives us everything he has every single night. You know, he could have injuries people don't even know about, you know, on a night-to-night basis. He just fights through because he cares about this group, cares about his teammates, wants to win. He's the first guy off the bench. When he's out of the game, he's the first guy standing. He's pulling the guys together in the huddle. So he does so much for us that, you know, doesn't even show up in a box score. And he'll continue to do that.
Well, and to that point, you know, I think what's amazing about it, to me, 14 years in the NBA, it's a guy that just continues to give it. Like you said, he empties the tank every single night. He's not the #1 scoring option. He's not the #1 guy on this team, and yet we saw him dive on the ball on the floor for 50-50 balls. He made an incredible bat-ahead pass on the floor the other night, which led to a breakaway dunk. But those plays, those are uncommon for guys who've been in the league as long as Marvin. But I just think he deserves all the respect in the world for how he carries himself.
No question. I mean, those are all winning plays. You know, they're all winning plays, competitive plays. And, you know, he really does it from the first minute to the 48th minute. He doesn't, you know, look at the first quarter, I'm going to ease myself into this. If there's anybody that's going at it from the jump, it's Marvin. He really sets the tone for us. And if the other guys aren't bringing it, he's the first guy to jump on them. So, no, I don't know where we'd be without Marvin on both ends of the floor. I mean, we're asking him to do so much for us, especially defensively. And, you know, for our fans out there, just know he's competing. I mean, and especially in today's NBA, to be in this league 14 years and still competing with these young bucks left and right, you know, they're coming with it, you know, in transition, the 3-ball, the floor is so spread right now, but he is trying to compete defensively every night.
One thing I've really liked watching from you is your development as a coach in this first year with the Hornets. Now as you guys enter this playoff run, anxiety starts to amp up of maybe players in the locker room, maybe you start watching the standings a little more. As a head coach dealing with this playoff run, what is your tactic in order to make sure that these guys stay focused and on what the goal is in getting to the playoffs?
Well, it's a challenge. It really is because, you know, we're all aware of what's going on around us. We try not to focus on it. You know, we know it's there. What I do try to do right now as a coach is focus on today and trying to get better. You know, looking at the game last night, where are those areas of growth that we can improve on? What did we do well to carry over to tomorrow night? Where are there areas that Golden State's going to, you know, we're going to see that in Houston and have some carryover. So right now we still want to get better. I think if we just focus on hoping that other teams lose or just hoping and wishing we win our way into the playoffs, that's not going to get it done. For us, we got to really work on getting better today. And looking at what we could have done better last night, how we can get that game done tomorrow, and not really look at what's coming down the road. Those games will come when they come, and we can't control what's going on with those teams around us. As much as I watch all those games at night, and it's fun to, sit there and watch games in the evening, the goal is really to stay focused on our group, control what we can control, and that's coming and competing every single day, knowing our job, and staying together. And I think this group right now is staying together. This is a tough stretch for us. This is a tough area. This group was not in this mix last year. They're excited about being in the mix now, but the challenge is to stay focused.
And to that point, I think you say, well, what can we extrapolate from this and say, let's carry this over? I think the start against Golden State, your team had struggled in the first quarter each of the last 4 games going in, but you gave yourself a chance to be in that game in the fourth by how you played in the first, and that maybe could have some carryover moving forward.
That's right. I mean, when you look at the first 2 games out of the break, bad first quarters, the first 2 games. We win the next 3 quarters. We win 1 game, we lost 1 game. And so we got to be focused on getting off to better starts. And I think we did last night. That gave us a chance, like you said, to win that game last night. If we do that over these next 22 games, I like our chances. But we got to come out with the right focus, the intensity, compete from the start, and I think we'll like our chances.
Got to ask, you excited about Biz Marquis being here to perform? It's kind of our age group.
That is, right? Yeah.
Right?
Yes. What is that, halftime?
The halftime. Biz Marquis is going to be out here.
All right.
Peek your head out a little early.
I heard your guy.
I got to get out there.
Mike Malone. You hear this story during the All-Star break, during All-Star Sunday? You had J. Cole outperforming halftime, and Team LeBron said, hey, Coach, can we go watch the halftime show? He said, if you guys get your rear ends back on defense, I'll let you go watch. So maybe that, I don't know, you get a little motivational.
I don't know if that'll work with our guys.
Yeah.
So
half of them might not know who Biz Marquis is.
That's true. We had Biz sing Biz Marquis, though, so that might have been one of our biggest gets.
That's right. Maybe we'll have that playing in our shoot-around
tomorrow.
There you go. So
there you go.
Teach them something.
That'd be good.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Coach. We really
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on again. As always, we'll make sure we catch up again with all of you next week on Tuesday on the Hornets.com Coaches Show. For head coach James Borrego, for Chris Kroger, I'm Matt Roczynski with Hornets.com.